You can shower every day, wear the sharpest suit, smell like a luxury store. But if your heart is dirty, the world will still feel rotten to you because the smell ain't outside. It's within you. When the heart is unclean, no wash can purify you. These words cut deeper than we expect, because we live in a culture that invests heavily in appearance, clean skin, clean clothes, clean images, clean social lives, yet carries hearts filled with resentment, jealousy, bitterness, and silent wounds. Ibn Arabi reminds us that purification begins where the eye cannot see and where the mirror cannot reflect. It begins in the unseen chambers of the heart. In America today, people can look polished on the outside, but be breaking on the inside. Stress, comparison, competition, hidden envy, emotional scars, these things don't wash away in the shower. They remain until a person has the courage to face them. Ibn Arabi teaches that the heart is the house of God, and the house of God is not purified by water, but by truth, honesty, humility, and sincere inner work. You don't disinfect the soul with soap, you clean it with surrender. Rumi once said, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself." This is the difference between outer washing and inner cleansing. A person can change their environment, their clothes, their habits, even their city, but unless they confront their inner shadows, the same pain will follow them everywhere. Ibn Arabi takes this further. He says that the world appears dark only because the heart is covered with dust. When the heart becomes clean, the world itself becomes illuminated. It's never the world that is unclean, it's the lens through which we see it. Think about it. A fish lives in water every moment of its life, yet its inner smell never leaves. Why? Because the odor is not on the surface, it's built into the fabric of the creature. The same is true of humans. A person can surround themselves with positivity, religion, spirituality, community, but if the heart remains filled with pride or anger, no outer influence can erase it. In the modern world, we often confuse looking good with being good. We polish the outside while ignoring the storms inside. We fix our posture but not our perspective. We clean our houses but not our intentions. We upgrade our lifestyle but not our character. Ibn Arabi warns that this imbalance creates spiritual suffocation, where a person cannot breathe peace no matter how beautiful their life looks. He said, "The heart is a mirror. Clean it, and it reflects the heavens. Leave it dirty, and it reflects only itself." Psychologist Carl Jung supported this idea centuries later when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate." In other words, unclean parts of the heart will dictate your destiny until you confront them. True purification happens when you sit with your fears, your envy, your wounds, your guilt, and your ego, not to condemn them, but to understand them. When you stop hiding your flaws behind a beautiful exterior and begin healing them from the inside out. When you forgive not to free others, but to free yourself. When you remove jealousy like a weed before it poisons your garden. When you replace pride with humility, darkness with honesty, and resentment with compassion. Ibn Arabi teaches that the pure heart is not the one that has never been wounded, it is the one that has healed from its wounds. He would say that every scar on the heart is a doorway to a higher state of consciousness if you face it with courage. American philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson echoed the same truth. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Your outer world is an echo of your inner world. A clean body cannot hide a toxic soul. A pleasant smile cannot hide a bitter heart. A calm voice cannot hide internal chaos. To purify the heart is to purify your entire existence. Because when the heart becomes clean, your vision becomes clear. When the heart becomes honest, your relationships transform. When the heart becomes soft, your path becomes easier. And when the heart becomes pure, the world around you appears new. Ibn Arabi would tell you, clean the place where God resides, and everything else will fall into place. Outer cleanliness means nothing without inner purity, because the human being is not defined by the surface that others see, but by the reality that only the soul can feel. And Ibn Arabi reminds us that the outer world is merely a reflection of the inner condition. So, when a person invests all their energy in decorating the outside clean clothes, polished shoes, well-groomed appearance, impressive image, but neglects the inner world where intentions, emotions, and truth reside, then the purification becomes incomplete and meaningless. Because water can wash the skin, but it cannot wash jealousy from the heart. It can remove dirt from the body, but it cannot remove the stains of ego, resentment, pride, or bitterness. And in a world obsessed with presentation, it becomes easy to confuse looking good with being good. Yet the heart knows, the soul knows, and God knows. And this is why Ibn Arabi emphasizes that the real battle for purity is not fought in the bathroom or in front of a mirror, but in the silent chambers of the heart where no one can see you but you and God. And this is the place where intentions form, desires grow, fears hide, wounds live, and truth waits patiently for a person to turn inward and face what they have been avoiding. Because a clean face cannot hide a dirty conscience, and a polished image cannot silence an unhealed heart, and even the most beautiful smile cannot conceal a storm of envy or hate boiling beneath the surface. And this is why people sometimes feel heavy without reason, angry without cause, restless without explanation, because the heart is carrying burdens that no amount of physical washing can remove. And the tragedy is that many people spend their lives trying to fix their discomfort by changing things outside, changing friends, changing environments, changing routines, yet the discomfort remains because the real impurity, the real heaviness, the real dirt is inside, untouched, unacknowledged, and unpurified. And Ibn Arabi tells us that the heart is the true house of God, and the house of God cannot be cleaned with water, perfume, or soap. It is cleaned with truth, forgiveness, humility, courage, and surrender. And this inner washing is far more painful than outer cleansing, because outer cleansing is easy. Anyone can take a shower. But inner cleansing requires confronting the parts of yourself you hide even from your own eyes. It requires admitting that you are jealous when you pretended to be supportive, that you were angry when you acted calm, that you were wounded when you said you were fine. And the heart becomes polluted not by mistakes, but by denial, by the refusal to face what lies within, by pretending that the inner odor is not there, by distracting yourself with noise and entertainment and work so you never have to hear the voice inside that is asking for purification. And when the heart is unclean, it leaks into every aspect of life. It shows up in how you speak, in how you love, in how you judge, in the energy you bring into a room. And people can feel it even if they cannot name it, because the heart's condition has a scent. Not a physical scent, but a spiritual one. A frequency, a vibration that reveals what the water could not touch. And this is why two people can walk into the same room with the same clothes, and only one brings a feeling of calm, while the other brings a feeling of discomfort. Because purity is not in the outfit, but in the aura. Not in the body, but in the being. Not in the appearance, but in the intention. And so the work of inner purification is the real work of living. The work of taking responsibility for your emotional footprint. The work of removing grudges one by one. The work of dissolving the ego that constantly demands to be right. The work of softening the heart so that compassion can replace anger and sincerity can replace pretension. And the more a person cleans their heart, the more they discover that life itself becomes cleaner, lighter, gentler, clearer, because the world outside is always colored by the condition inside. And when the inner world shines, the outer world reflects that shine back to you without needing to change anything except yourself. Heart is the mirror of reality, because every experience, every perception, every relationship, and every moment of life is filtered through the lens of what lives inside you. And Ibn Arabi teaches that nothing in the world is seen as it truly is, only as the heart allows it to be seen. Meaning a wounded heart sees a threatening world. A jealous heart sees an unfair world. An ego-driven heart sees a competitive world. And a grateful heart sees a blessed world. So the external world is not the problem, the internal world is. And this is why two people can live through the same moment, yet have completely different interpretations. One sees beauty while the other sees disappointment. One sees opportunity while the other sees danger. One sees hope while the other sees meaninglessness. because the reality you experience is nothing more than the reflection of your inner state projected outward. Just as a dirty mirror cannot reflect a clean image, a heart covered with resentment, bitterness, fear, or arrogance cannot reflect truth, clarity, or peace. And this is the deep wisdom behind Ibn Arabi's teaching that the universe is not outside you, but inside you. That what you call the world is only your heart interpreting itself through people and events, and if the heart is unclean, then everything you touch, everything you see, everything you feel becomes tinted by that impurity. And this is why someone with internal anger finds a reason to be irritated even on peaceful days, while someone with inner peace can remain calm even in storms. Because reality is not happening to you, it is happening from you. And what emerges from within paints the entire landscape of your life. So, when the heart is wounded, life itself feels like a wound. And when the heart is healed, life itself feels like healing. And this is why people sometimes blame circumstances, blame relationships, blame luck, blame destiny, without realizing that the problem is not out there, but in the lens through which they are seeing it all. Because perception itself becomes contaminated when the heart is contaminated. And this creates a cycle of misunderstanding where a person repeatedly interprets situations through fear or suspicion, not because situations are bad, but because the heart is carrying unresolved shadows, unhealed trauma, or unpurified ego. And the tragedy is that many people keep trying to fix their lives by changing the outside, changing jobs, partners, cities, friends, without ever cleaning the heart that is distorting their view of everything. And so the same problems repeat in new environments, not because fate is cruel, but because the heart has not changed. And wherever the heart goes, its distorted mirror goes with it, shaping every experience in its image. But Ibn Arabi gives hope by reminding us that the heart, despite being fragile, is also transformable, that it is possible to polish the mirror within until it becomes clear enough to reflect truth without distortion. And this polishing happens through self-awareness, honesty, compassion, and humility, through the willingness to question your own reactions, your judgments, your fears, and your assumptions. And as the heart becomes clearer, the world itself becomes clearer, because the fog that once blurred perception begins to lift, making room for understanding, wisdom, and inner peace. And that clarity changes everything: your decisions, your relationships, your sense of purpose, your gratitude, your emotional stability, even your connection to the divine. Because when the mirror is clean, it reflects the light of truth without interference. And such a heart begins to see the world not through pain, but through wisdom, not through fear, but through courage, not through ego, but through presence. And life becomes lighter. Events become easier to understand. People become easier to forgive. And the world becomes easier to navigate. Not because the world changed, but because the heart finally learned to see without distortion. And this is the secret that most people never discover. Change your heart, and you change your world. Clean your inner mirror, and reality begins to shine back at you in ways you never imagined. When the heart becomes heavy with unspoken burdens, unhealed wounds, quiet resentments, and subtle hatreds, a strange thing begins to happen inside the human being, as if the soul starts carrying a weight it was never designed to hold. And you may continue to smile, work, pray, speak, even help others, yet something within remains clouded, like a mirror covered with the dust of years, a mirror that still reflects light but never clearly. And this is the tragedy Ibn Arabi warns about, that when the heart loses its purity, everything else becomes slightly distorted, slightly darker, slightly heavier. And a person keeps searching outside for reasons, for solutions, for distractions, for noise, for entertainment, for excuses, without realizing the battlefield is not out there, but within. And one of the greatest signs of inner impurity is when the world begins to feel tasteless, when ibadah feels dry, when kindness feels exhausting, when people feel irritating, when silence feels scary, when solitude feels uncomfortable. And all of this emerges because the heart that was created to be a garden turned into a storage of unprocessed emotions, envy, bitterness, and unhealed memories so the soul suffocates under layers of what was never meant to remain inside. And the purification that the saints speak of is not about rituals alone, not about outward discipline alone, not about washing hands and face and body alone, but washing the stains accumulated inside, the stains no one else sees, the stains no one else speaks of, yet the stains that shape every word, every reaction, every thought, every intention. And when these stains remain unwashed, no matter how often one performs outer cleansing, something still feels unsettled, because purity is not a physical state, but a spiritual fragrance that rises from within. And this fragrance returns only when one begins to confront the truth of oneself gently, honestly, courageously. And the saints say that the heart becomes impure when it absorbs moments of disappointment without transforming them, when it witnesses injustice without forgiving, when it receives hurt without releasing, when it sees blessings in others but holds jealousy, when it experiences loss but does not surrender it to God. And slowly the heart becomes a vessel of contradictions, a place where divine light wants to descend but finds no room, where clarity wants to enter but encounters walls built from years of emotional neglect. And one continues living, thinking everything is normal, while unaware that every decision, every feeling, every choice is coming through a lens no longer clean, like trying to see the world through fog glass. And the greatest illusion is when a person believes the problem is in the world outside, while the real fog is inside the heart. And Ibn Arabi reminds us that the heart is the throne of divine manifestation. So, when the throne is dusty, the king's reflection appears dim, not because the king is dim, but because the mirror is unprepared. And this is why spiritual people keep returning to inner purification, not because they enjoy pain, but because they understand that the heart cannot serve two masters, cannot carry love and hatred, cannot hold remembrance and resentment, cannot welcome divine presence while entertaining grudges. And so they begin the delicate work of inner washing, not with water, but with reflection, with humility, with forgiveness, with repentance, with silence, with prayer, with deep presence. And when these inner washings begin, the heart slowly regains its softness, becoming like fertile soil again, capable of blooming with compassion, capable of receiving wisdom, capable of seeing beauty, capable of loving without insecurity, capable of trusting without fear, capable of worshiping without force. And in this state life itself changes, not because the world changed, but because the eyes of the heart became clean again. And a clean heart begins to taste sweetness in small things, begins to appreciate blessings it once ignored, begins to feel serenity even in storms, begins to see people through gentleness rather than suspicion, begins to forgive easily because its own burdens have been lifted. And this is the gift of true Tazkiyah, that inner purification transforms not only the soul but the entire experience of existence, bringing clarity where there was confusion, stillness where there was noise, faith where there was doubt, and love where there was fear. All because the mirror within was polished once more without waiting for the world to change, without demanding others to behave differently, without seeking solutions in rituals alone, but returning to the center, the heart, the place where everything begins. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey where they must confront a truth they have been avoiding, the truth that no matter how many outer acts of worship they perform, no matter how many books they read, no matter how many rituals they complete, nothing can replace the purification that must happen within the chambers of the heart, because outer actions are like the clothing of the soul, while inner purification is its breath. And a soul without breath cannot live, cannot grow, cannot ascend. So Ibn Arabi reminds us again and again that the true path to God begins when a person stops polishing their appearance and starts polishing their intention, when they stop correcting others and begin correcting themselves, when they stop blaming the world and begin looking into the mirror of their own soul, not to criticize themselves harshly, but to see the fog that has settled there over years of ignoring what the heart was trying to say. And the tragedy is that most people silence their hearts because they fear what it might reveal, fear that it might ask them to let go of grudges they enjoy holding, fear that it may expose attachments they secretly worship, fear that it might ask for honesty where they prefer comfort. And so they keep their hearts busy, noisy, distracted, filled with constant motion, because silence would force them to notice the layers of dust covering the mirror inside. And this avoidance becomes a habit, a lifestyle, a spiritual blindness where a person keeps washing their outer body while forgetting the stains clinging to their inner being. The stains invisible to the eyes of people, but painfully visible to the Creator. And these stains come from ego, from pride, from jealousy, from unresolved pain, from uncontrolled desires, from the tendency to compare, from the need to appear righteous instead of becoming sincere. And these stains cannot be washed by water, cannot be removed by performing rituals with a distracted heart, cannot be erased by pretending to be spiritually advanced, because the heart knows the truth even when the mind denies it, and the heart continues to ache quietly, yearning for purification, yearning for lightness, yearning for a release from the burdens it carries, as if it whispers to its owner,